Rosen, Senator Tuberville, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for your service. Secretary Mary, you're doing a good job. I'd like to ask you this, with all these new conflicts popping up since you've taken office, how has your approach changed, and what metrics do you have in place to oversee possibly new threats getting ready to pop up? Have you done anything looking to the future?
Yes, so Senator Tuberville, thanks for the question. It's really important because I think the world has only become more complex really over the last couple years. And I think we look at it in a couple different perspectives. We look across the three different mission sets that SOCOM has. So General Fenn's already talked to, I've already talked to the uptick in crisis response requirements. So we're going out the door more often for crisis response. Some of that is because we don't have as many forces forward, but some of that is because we're relying on this force more. One of the metrics we've taken on board is determining whether this is a blip, as General Fenton said, or a trend. We think this is more likely a trend. So we're taking appropriate action to make sure that we're resourcing it with that idea that the requirement is going to be high and stay high. I think counterterrorism, because it is something that the Special Operations Enterprise is being looked to carry more of the burden on that, more of the mission space, because the services are moving to integrated deterrence. We need to ensure that every time we're doing something in counterterrorism, we're getting as much benefit for some of the other mission sets. So if we can do something against Russia while we're doing a counterterrorism mission, if we can do something against China, that's a twofer for us. That counts more. And then I think we've already talked about the value we see in, if you will, competition and the ability to really have a outsized return on investment for limited force deployments. We look at that all the time as a standard metric of, are we getting that high return on investment? If we're not, in many cases, we're going to pivot to a different approach or a different TTP tactics, sir. So those would be the three main areas I'd look across, and give you a bit of a sampling of how we're looking at it, sir.
Thank you. General Hawk, you're the new kid on the block, new command, going to grow. We all know that. It's very, very important. You see yourself and your command privatizing and all, with all the competition we have in the private field in cyber?
Senator, we look at our industry partners as teammates. Our domain's unique. It's created by industry that builds out the cyber domain. So how we think about how we leverage it, how we defend it, is part of the partnership that we'll have with industry, with our international partners, and all of our fellow combatant commanders who leverage cyberspace every day to conduct all the missions of the Department of Defense.
So you got all hands on deck. I mean, you're using everybody you possibly can. Is that correct? So is that what I'm hearing?
We do, Senator.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. General Fenton, thank you for your service. We've had special operators the last 20 years. Have we lost some of our geographic standards across the country in terms of different locations with special ops? Because I know, for instance, the 20th Command is in Auburn, Alabama, and they've been working different areas, and they normally work the Southcom area. So are we too spread out?
Well, Senator, first, thank you for the work that all the National Guard teammates do in the Special Operations community. In the case of 20th Group, fantastic. What I would say is there has been, as we've noted, an increasing demand across the COCOMs for special operations, and my sense is absolutely rightly so. You know, in an era where we want to prevent great power conflict, having special operators out there being part of the fabric of any nation, building capability, teaching them to shoot, move, communicate, sustain, medicate, learn how to do staff training. That starts a relationship, thickens it, and all builds towards partners and allies preventing that type of peace. That demand's gone up, as has the demand by the world voting for crisis response. So my sense is, A, the demand's gone up, and we've adjusted accordingly through a risk-informed approach. But at every given day, everybody, all hands, total compo and SOCOM, active, National Guard, Reserve, and civilians are absolutely needed on deck. And each and every time we make that risk-informed decision, we're bringing it back to the Secretary and then we're moving out because I see those demands continue to grow up.
We just passed $60 billion send Ukraine. We're up to $120 billion. Of course, we all hope that they can win. I know you're very involved in that, not physically, but mentally, and a lot of your people are in training in terms of that. I wish we could give that $60 billion to you and your people to build what we have. Just one quick question, and just get your thoughts. I asked everybody this. Can Ukraine win? And what does that look like? I know you're going to say yes, but so what does that look like?
Well, Senator, I absolutely will say yes. Ukraine can absolutely win. As you mentioned, the whole SOCOM team, but the command sergeant major and I in particular have been very involved outside of Ukraine based on policy. But we've had the chance to visit with these Ukrainian special operators in European locations, again, outside of Ukraine, watching them train, watching them get better, watching them teach us, especially lessons learned. And I got to tell you, at each and every point, they're incredible, committed, existentially focused teammates, and they absolutely can win. They need our help, for sure, as the secretary and chairman talked yesterday. So I'd say they absolutely can. What does winning look like? First, I'm going to talk about, in my own perspective, what it looks like losing for Putin. I think it denies him the objectives he wanted in terms of fracturing NATO. It's stronger than ever, and we will keep it that way. I think it denies him the objectives of being in somebody aggressing against a smaller democratic nation and covering up that whole territory. And we're working hard to keep it that way. I think it also denies him the objectives that he might have had in the rest of Europe as he's tied down in this, losing equipment, generals, artillery pieces, everything else that he was dependent on. I think winning for Ukraine, I'd leave the definition to President Zelensky exactly, but I got to feel it's a sovereign, democratic, independent Ukraine is able to defend its borders and is still partnered with NATO and with the United States.
Thank you. One last thing, not a question, just I'd love to get a report on those 5 special ops that lost their lives, I think in the Red Sea or the Mediterranean in a helicopter. One of them was an Alabama soldier, and I'd love to get a report on that if I could, whenever you finish it. No hurry on that.
Senator, I would first say thank you. Our thoughts and prayers again go out to those immediate families, extended families, the states of which they come from. Thank you as well for noting that. And our units, we're working as fast as we can to go through the understanding of it, investigation, and I'll stop there. But as soon as we have it through the secretary, we'll share with the department and this Congress.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tuberville.